My name is Bryan Peterson, and I am a life coach with Success Mindset Life Coach with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. And I want to welcome you to the Life Coach University and their Pay It Forward platform, where literally coaches from around the world, I'm talking around the world, have come to help coach you and millions more. All that we ask is that you join us in paying it forward. We don't care how you do it, just as long as we just want to create the biggest ripple effect of gift giving the world has ever seen. And it all starts with each one of us in our own communities. So we just ask that you pay it forward. You can pay it forward to yourself by using this teaching here today and improve yourself. You could share it with somebody else. You could teach somebody else. That's the best way to learn. I love that. You can volunteer somewhere. You can buy somebody lunch, give somebody a hug, make somebody laugh. That's my favorite. We don't care how you do it. We just want you to join us in making this the type of world that we want to live in, which is one filled with more peace, love, joy, and meaningful connection. So I just want to honor you for being here, whether you're watching with me live or you're catching this at a later date. You are amazing. Congrats on putting yourself first and joining this. This is going to be amazing. I hope that you get a lot out of it. And let's dive in. Let's do it. Once again, my name is Bryan Peterson, and I am a success mindset coach with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. And today's topic is exercising your mental muscles, how decision-making impacts or influences your life. Oh, wait. Before we get started if you have any questions during this, I tend to talk fast, I ramble on, I get off on stories and tangents and stuff like that. So if you don't understand something, if there's something that you want to ask, or if you just want to share something, I highly encourage you to share your thoughts, please. Just use the Q&A box. There's a Q&A box there. Just type in your question. I will get to it as soon as possible. I'll actually be pausing several times throughout this to ask if you have any questions. So there'll be plenty of time for you to input it. I believe you can do it anonymously, so don't worry about that. Anyway, let's dive right in. Exercising your mental muscles, that's the category. That's what I teach. What is special about those? When I ask the majority of people, like 99% of the people I ask, how do you get healthier? And they say diet and exercise. Which both involve the body, right? The physical body. You either exercising, you're either like jogging, cardio, or lifting weights, and the diet helps improve your physical body too. But the thing that I encounter the most is that people don't pay attention to their mental health, their mental strength. And I think that is actually the bigger proponent that we need to be focusing on, because it's what allows us to follow through with the dieting and the exercises, our mental strength and our mental health. And so that's what I want to share with you today. Over the course of my coaching journey, I have ascertained a bunch of different mental muscles, and decision-making, believe it or not, decision-making is a huge mental muscle. So we're going to talk about that today. There's 3 different categories I'm going to talk about, and that's the type of decisions and how we make them. And what I want you to do during that process is I want you to think of, how do you fit in? How do these what are the decisions in this category that I'm talking about? What are your specific decisions? And then how do you make decisions? In what ways do you make decisions, so that later on, when we work on improving them, we can do that. The second thing I want to talk about is the actual impact of our decisions and how they impact us. And then the third way is, of course, I think what most of us are here for, is how do I improve it? Like, how do I make quote unquote better decisions? So we're literally the product of all of our actions. Everything that has led up to this point of you and me talking right now, whatever job you have, wherever you live, whatever relationships you have, all of your actions have led to this point. In other words, everything you've done has created this. But what's the precursor to that is the actual decision. Like, we decided to do these actions, right? So our decisions have basically led us to this point. And it brought the question up to me, is our life being guided in the direction that we want? Like towards the life that we want, or is it just going default some other direction? Because we have a say in this. And so that's what kind of brought it on in the first place, for me to really explore this. So before we dive in, does anybody have any questions? Just curious. I know it's early on. I don't see any yet. So I always start things off with defining what we're talking about. And so I looked up decision in the dictionary, and this is what I got. It is a conclusion or a resolution reached after consideration. But what I want to share even more is what I learned from Tony Robbins a long time ago, that the definition of decision actually has Latin roots to it. And so the word decide comes from the Latin word decidere. Don't judge me if I said that wrong, which is a combination of two words, D, which is off, DE, which is off, and cadere, which means to cut. So actually deciding, when we're deciding and making decisions, we're actually just cutting off all these other alternatives and making what I call a true decision. But we're going to talk about that more later, because more often than not, we're not making any true decisions. We're just kind of making a regular old decision. So anyway, let's dive into the different types of decisions and then how we make them. And I want you to get in the context of your own personal decisions, the things that you struggle with, and the different types of decisions that you make yourself, because I want you to see how this fits into your life, not the way I decide or whatever. I just want to share these. So I came up with a few categories to kind of elicit that from you. So some of the types of decisions that we make in our life are big decisions and little decisions. That's the first category. And big decisions might be a new career or a job or a relationship with somebody, or maybe buying a house. Those are kind of big decisions. And little ones might be like, am I having pancakes for breakfast or cereal? So we've got that. It's a pretty general category. We've also got what I refer to as impulse decisions or in the moment decisions. And I'm here to tell you that the people, whoever designed the checkout counters in any grocery store, convenience store, or retail store have really learned how to impact our impulse decision making, because they've got the candy bars there, the chapstick, they got all the things you could think of when you're leaving that store that you might have forget, that you're like, oh, I got to buy that. My favorite story is that my wife and I, every time we shop, we cannot pass by the checkout stand without my wife going, I'm thirsty, because she knows that like her favorite water is going to be there. Another type of impulse decision might be if somebody cuts you off in traffic, your impulse decision might be to tailgate them. Or if somebody says something that offends you or something like that, you might have some sort of impulse thing that you might say. So we have a lot of impulse decisions there. The next category is probably the biggest one, and I just call it our daily decisions. These are the decisions that we make over and over again every day, and we're constantly making decisions throughout the day, which is, what are we going to eat? What am I going to wear? Do we do the dishes or not? Do I dive into that project that I need to do for work or school, or do I watch Netflix instead? In fact, I think that I just posted about this. I think the biggest decision that we make every day is, what am I going to have for dinner? I text my wife food ideas all the time, because we plan our food weekly, and every week, today's the day actually, that it's like, oh, food ideas. I got to come up with food ideas. So we're always making these daily decisions. The next category of decision making is what I call planning or future decisions. And these can be big or little. They could be impulse ones as well, but they also impact us in another way. And so they range from like, what am I going to do to this weekend with my friends, to maybe a little bit bigger, like what are the goals for myself or my business? You might see some of this planning come with like a vision board where people write out like their dreams, their goals, their vacations, their houses, their families, and their cars and things like that. So those are just some of the categories and the types of ways we decide things. And I hope that jogs some of the decisions that you make on a daily basis, or some impulse decisions that you make, or some of your future plans, because we're going to talk about those later on. Now, some of the ways we make the decisions, some people like to weigh the pros and cons, and some people just go with like their gut instinct. I know that I like to go with the pros and cons a lot. I was very like math was my really good subject. So I just kind of weighed the pros and cons. And other people just will encounter a situation and say, no, that one just looks better to me and stuff. And so some people do it that way. Another way that we make a decision is deciding what's the most important thing that I could be doing right now? What's the most important thing to do? I see this a lot with entrepreneurs. I see this a lot with students. I see this a lot with, it could be anybody. It could be a stay-at-home parent, anybody that has got a to-do list of things to do. And they're like, what's the most important thing? And then they struggle with that. They're like, they've got this list of 20 things. They're like, God, what do I do? What do I do? And we start to hem-haw around. So that's another way that we make decisions, is by deciding what's important or not. See, another decision. Another thing is some people just struggle to make decisions anyway. It's like they fear the impact of the decision. And then other people just make decisions like that with conviction, and they're just making them. And I want to share that all these different ways, all of us can resonate with each one of them a lot. There's times where we weigh the pros and cons, and there's times where we just go with our gut instinct. There's times where we're struggling to decide what's important, and then there's times where we just do it. So there's a little bit in all of us. I don't want to pigeonhole us into any category that says that I make the decisions this way. We may tend to think of ourselves like, I think that I weigh the pros and cons a lot, but there's a lot of times where I'm just going and moving forward. But the whole idea of this is, like I was talking about, is our life being guided in the direction we want or not? And so I want to bring up what they say that successful people, successful people make quick, informed decisions, and they don't look back. They don't second guess themselves. They just make the decision, and then they simply make adjustments as they go along. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to create success with our decisions. I don't want you to think of, when you think of a successful person either, I don't think of the millionaire with all this stuff, unless that's your version of success. Right now, I just want you to picture what would be achieving success in any category of your life right now look like. And because those are the decisions that you're going to be making that will lead you in that direction. But there's two qualities that this successful person has. And the first quality is that they trust themselves to follow through. Think about it. When we struggle to make a decision about doing something, is because we just don't trust ourselves to follow through. We decided that we're going to work out so many times, and we've broken that promise so many times, we don't trust ourselves to follow through. So then oh God, should I do this or not? And we go through this sometimes agonizing path to making decisions, or we hesitate to make it. And the other quality that they have is that they believe in themselves enough that they can overcome whatever the outcome or circumstance or consequence of that decision. They know that they can overcome that, whether it's good and bad. Because I see a lot of people hesitate to make decisions because they do what I call the what if stories. Well, what if something bad happens? Well, what if this happens, right? And I've always encouraged, if you're that type of person, that if you're going to do the what if story, because it's just a story, we don't know if it's going to happen or not, is to create an uplifting story. Like, what if something good happens? But either way, the successful person, they don't care. It doesn't matter what happens. They just know that I'll figure it out. That's my go-to. Like, that's what helps me make all my decisions, and helps me end the procrastination with them. Is like, you know what? I'll figure it out. I trust myself enough to figure it out. So those are the two things that successful people making decisions do, is they trust themselves to follow through, and they trust themselves to figure it out when they do. That's why they can make such quick decisions, and not just quick decisions, but informed decisions. It's not like successful people just make willy-nilly decisions. They're informed, like they know what they're doing. And before we move on to the next category, I want to share, some of you may be thinking that you're not good at decision making, and what you're actually experiencing is a thing called decision fatigue. And I'm here to say that decision fatigue is real. And some of you may be asking, Bryan, what is decision fatigue? decision fatigue, and I looked this up. I just wanted to be able to explain it better than what I said. It's the mental exhaustion from the sheer number of decisions a person must make daily. Like you just get exhausted. You're just like, okay, I'm done. I can't decide anymore. I want to give you an example from my life. And we've got a thought here. Somebody said, I tend to make decisions, then doubt it was the right one. I worry that I wasted my time, money, or energy. Yes, big. And I'm going to talk about this, whether we made the right decision or not. I'm going to go into that. I promise you, I'm going to go into that in a little bit, but thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's a big deal. Like, God, did I waste my money and stuff? But remember, when you believe that you'll figure out a way, then you've never wasted your money. Like you've never wasted your time. It was only a learning experience for you. And when you could look at it that way, then it becomes a whole different thing. It's not, oh God, I wasted my time. It's like, no, I learned better what to do with my time. And that's what I lean on. I will figure out a way. But anyway, back to decision fatigue. Whenever my wife and I go to declutter like our storage unit or something, there's a lot of decisions. Or even if you're going through your daily decisions, what to wear, what to eat. Like when we're decluttering, it's like, do I keep it or not? And do I keep it? There's a lot of questions. Am I going to use it? If I'm going to use it, where am I going to put it again? How often am I going to use it? Is it going to make that big of a deal? There's all these questions. Then if I do keep it, great, where am I going to put it? What am I going to do with it? And if I'm not going to keep it, God, what am I going to do with it then? Am I just going to throw it away? Am I going to donate it? Am I going to try to sell it? There's just all these decisions. And so literally like an hour or two, maybe not even that long into it, I'm like, I'm done. I'm done deciding for a little while, honey. I'm taking a 15-minute break. So decision fatigue is real. I just want to share that. And now this is one of my stopping points. Do we have any questions? Does somebody else want to share one of their thoughts? I got to take a moment to drink. My wife says I'm like a chatty Cathy doll, just pulling my own chain. And if you don't know what a chatty Cathy doll is, look it up. It's hilarious. Okay, so I don't see any more right now. Let's dive into what are the ways decisions impact our life or influence our lives or guide our lives. Now, there's actually a couple more types of decisions we make. And I didn't share them in the first category or in the first thing because I wanted to share them here because it's a different type of decision and it has a different type of impact. These are the types of decisions where we help determine, like we get to decide what type of person we are. We get to decide what values we have, right? And these help build our character. So you would think that these have way more of an impact than some of these other decisions. But these decisions, like we decide our financial. If you Google a wheel of life, it will show you, it's a circle with all these different categories of your life. And so we make financial decisions that have a huge impact, right? We make decisions about our relationships. Who do we hang around with? And in fact, they say that you are the sum of the top 5 people that you surround yourself with. And that's why you'll see successful people surround themselves with successful people who lift them up. And then some people surround themselves with people who just pull them down. So those are important decisions, right? Our decisions affect our career. They affect our romance. They affect our spirituality. Our decisions affect us socially and emotionally. So literally, all of our decisions, like I said before, guide our path. They lead us up to where we're at in life. They guide us where we're at in life. They literally shape our lives. That's how important decisions are, the big ones, the little ones. Like what's the difference between eating pancakes or something else in the morning? I mean, it's not a big decision, right? But it does, it shapes your health. Hang on, we've got another question. How do you get others to not get in your way of making decisions? That's a great one. First of all, you have to understand that, thank you for sharing that, by the way, that I always say that we have a sphere of control. And one of the things that we control is our decisions, and you control whether you let that person influence you or not. Now, it just may depend on the relationship. Like my wife and I, yes, she will certainly influence my decision, but ultimately our personal power lies in our own thinking and then our own decision making. So, that's something that if you're a people pleaser, then that's something you work on. I've got some things on how to improve our decision making muscle later on that I'll share with you that will definitely help with that. And if I don't bring that up again, just remind me of that and I will get to it. But that's a great question. How do you get others to not get in your way of decision making? Like stop, and that just, it's who you surround yourself with too. Like if you're surrounding yourself with people that lift you up, then you want them to influence your decision making. Whereas if you're surrounding yourself with people that pull you down, then maybe not. But thank you for sharing that. So back to what's the impact of decision making? It literally shapes our lives. Like it determines the trajectory of our life. I like to think that life flows. It's like a lazy river. Sometimes maybe it's rapids sometimes, but it's always flowing. It's always moving forward. And that's why when people say, I need some balance, I need work-life balance. When I think of balance, I think of somebody like a board on a ball and they're trying to balance themselves and it's teetering. Whereas when life is flowing, it's just going that direction. And our decisions help determine that flow. One of my favorite quotes about decision making was from Einstein. And once again, the internet. I hope he said it, but who knows? It doesn't matter who said it, but he said the most important decision we make as humans is whether we believe we live in a friendly or hostile universe or not. And it's true, because if you think it's a friendly universe where life is happening for you, as opposed to a unfriendly universe, hostile universe where it's happening to you, you make different decisions. It's like getting a flat tire and going, why does it always happen to me? Bad things always happen to me. You get angry and you make decisions that lead you this direction. Whereas if you believe that it's a friendly universe, then this flat tire must be here for me. Maybe it stopped you from getting in an accident down the road. Maybe it was just time to take a breather, but it changes your perspective on things. So the way we decide has a huge, huge impact. And it's not just little things and the big things, it's just everything. Now, I'm not saying go about your day like every little decision is going to have this impact right then immediately. Some are long-term or whatever, but I just want you to be aware that we're literally day in and day out in control of the trajectory of our lives. Don't get me wrong, life happens. I know that life does its own things and we're meeting each other in the middle, but on our part, we can control that. So that is how our decisions influence our lives. And if anybody has any questions, again, at this point, feel free to toss them out or anything that you want to share. Okay. So now we're going to move on to what I think everybody's here for is how do I improve? How do I change? How do I better? How do I enhance? Or how do I strengthen my ability to make decisions that are actually going to move me in the direction that I want? The first thing we need to do is actually make a couple of decisions. I know I chuckle at that one too. But first, we just need to decide, is our life where we want it to be? Are the circumstances, is everything moving in the right direction? If it is, then hey, stay trusting your decision-making ability and you're good. If it's not, which I believe that's why most of the people are here, if it's not, then we have to decide if we're willing to change or not. And if we're willing to change, then I've got a whole list of things that are going to follow that will going to help us enhance or strengthen our ability to make decisions. But if you're not willing to change, that's okay too. There's other mental muscles that we can exercise that can help us in that situation. Acceptance, letting go, and gratitude are certainly, I call them the big three. There's muscle groups. And if you use those three together, then that certainly can help you out in your situation if you're not at the point where you're ready to make new decisions. You want to learn, but you're not ready to make new decisions. But I hope that you listen and let these other things influence your ability. And a second thing is this category, none of this has to do with making the right decisions. And I'm getting back to your question or your statement at the very beginning is did I make the right decision? When we categorize these things like it's a right or wrong decision, then we're really, really kind of hampering our ability to move and to do things better. I shift that. Did I make a right or wrong decision? I shift that into, did that decision serve me in a good way or in a better way? Did, did it move me in the direction that I want to go? Can you see the difference? Like, that wasn't a bad decision, or it wasn't a good, good decision. It simply, that decision helped move me in a direction, in the direction that I want to go. And that immensely helps me from thinking, oh God, I made the wrong decision. Especially when you think you made the wrong decision, then there's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of beating ourselves up. And then you've got that hammer and you're beating yourself over the head. Bryan, you're just terrible. You suck at making decisions. You always make the wrong decision. That takes a lot of it out. No, I make decisions that move me in a better direction. I like that, rather than, well, that one just moved me in a direction I didn't want to go. Lesson learned, and now I can shift it. So this isn't to teach you how to make a right decision or how to avoid making wrong decisions. This is simply to strengthen your ability to make decisions to guide you in the direction you want. And the first way, you're going to laugh at this one, but the first way is just to start making decisions. Like, start making decisions, start making lots of them, decide. It's a 3-step process: decide, follow through, and overcome. Remember what I talked about? Successful people know that they're going to follow through. They trust themselves to follow through. So the more times we decide and follow through, decide and follow through, decide and follow through, we're going to build that trust and then overcome whatever happens after that. Find a way to maneuver around it, start teaching ourselves that yes, no matter the decisions we make, we can overcome. And eventually, and then ask this question after you've made the decision, after you've done it, maybe at the end of the day, did those decisions serve me or not? And if the answer is yes, then great. You've trained your brain to push you in the right direction. If they didn't serve you, you can make a mental note. And once again, you've trained yourself on which direction, on how to make a quote unquote better decision in the future. So you can see that every time we're making a decision, if we're conscious of it, we're actually training ourselves. And hang on just a moment, I got another one here. Some seem so scary to decide, like, should I leave her? Or will I have access to my kids? It's like one decision will create a domino effect. Yeah, absolutely. And once again, those go back to the what if scenarios. And I call them what if stories, and they're what if spiral up. Like, what if something great happens? And what if something spirals down? And what if something bad happens? So I would share with you that in order to help yourself and feel more comfortable making those decisions, is try some of the what if spirals up. Like, what if leaving her ends up being a good thing and then I completely meet the woman of my dreams? What if I still have access to my kids? What if this is something that is good that's going to happen to me, that it's going to allow me to see my kids more? There's always kinds of scenarios like and this is a good thing, because how we make those decisions back in that category is a lot of times we just struggle because we don't want to feel the outcome. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. We don't want to feel the discomfort of having made that decision and the repercussions from it. And so if you use these things that I'm teaching you right now, and how to make decisions, and you actually learn to trust yourself even more, and you'll tap in more to your intuitive process. I hope that helped. But thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So we're just making decisions: decide, follow through, and then overcome. And eventually what we're doing is we're strengthening that muscle. And during this process, I mentioned the decision fatigue. So it's going to happen. If you start forcing yourselves, I want you to think, I want you to think of, like, if you go to the gym and you're lifting weights and you're doing a lot of curls to strengthen your bicep, eventually it gets tired, right? So you got to rest it. You got to come back in a couple of days. Same thing here. Make a bunch of decisions, take a break. Take 15 to 20 minutes and don't think about anything you're doing. I work from home, so a lot of times I'll just hop in the car, I'll drive, take a small drive, or we've got a park behind us, so I can go out and walk and do some stuff, or I play with my cats, or I'll distract myself with, if I'm working on my business, maybe I'll distract myself with things like doing the dishes or something else that just takes my mind off of these decisions that I'm trying to make. But anyway, you give yourself a break. And just like you go to the gym and you're working out that bicep, you're going to do 3 sets of 10 reps, let's say, at a certain weight. And after you do that enough, a couple of weeks go by and you're stronger. So then you add weight to that and then you lift again. And it's the same thing we're doing with our decision muscle. We're making it stronger. So decision fatigue is not going to happen as much. It's still going to happen, trust me, because no matter how strong you are, you lift that weight enough times, your muscle fatigue, I think they call it, I'm not sure. But eventually your biceps going to be like, I can't do it anymore, Bryan, I'm done. But that's the whole idea, is to strengthen our ability to stretch it to allow us to do it more. So that's the first way that we can help improve our decision making. The second way is to actually create kind of decisions ahead of time. I call them, some people call them golden rules, some people will call them laws, but you want to have like a set of 10 to 15 things that no matter what, the decision's already made. And I'll give you an example. It might be that you decide that I don't drink caffeine after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, no matter what. And then, so when that 3 o'clock comes around, it just helps you make that decision. Is it after 3? Then I'm not drinking caffeine. That decision is already made. And a lot of these can be value-based too. So if you value family, maybe the decision is that we eat together as a family every night, or no cell phones at the table, whatever it is. But you can certainly put your values into them, right? And it will also help you make decisions. Let's say that you, as a family, you eat together every night, and you're thinking about whether you want to go to a movie or not, or something like that. It's an easy decision. No, I can't go to it because I eat with my family tonight. So it actually helps you. Having these golden rules will actually help you make other decisions because they connect with this decision. I hope that made sense. It basically saves your decision energy. So when that time comes, like you've already decided ahead of time, that you don't have to make that decision. And I like to limit it to 10 to 15 of these golden rules, because if we expand on that and we do a bunch of them, then we're more apt to break it or not do it. And the more times we break these decisions, remember, we lose that trust with ourselves. And one of the things we want to keep building is our trust in ourselves and belief in ourselves that we're going to follow through and overcome. Those were the 2 qualities that I talked about earlier. So we definitely want to pay attention to that. So 10 to 15 of them, they're golden rules. One of mine is, and you may have to use a little bit of willpower to get yourself through them. Like one of mine is to do a daily evaluation. And sometimes when I get to that point in the evening, I'm mentally tired, but I know it's a rule, so I do it anyway. And it's the difference between just doing a simple evaluation of my day, what went well, what didn't go well, as opposed to doing an in-depth one, but I'll still make sure that I do it. So I have a little willpower there to get myself up, but I know it's a rule. And every time I follow it, every time I do it, I feel better about myself. We got another question here. Is spiral up being more positive, even if it doesn't sound good? I'm not sure I understand that. Like, is spiraling up, even if it doesn't sound good and it's moving you in a positive direction? I like to avoid like toxic positivity where you're just being positive to be positive. I like to spiral up stories that make sense to me and that are believable for me, that allow me to get out of the discomfort that I'm in. Did that make sense? So if I'm having discomfort making a decision because it has to do with something like, a relationship or family and kids and spouse and stuff like that, it just helps to make a spiral up story, because they're all stories. Remember, we don't know what's going to happen. And if you're going to choose a story, I just like to choose a story that's just going to push me in a direction that, once again, that's just going to serve me better. It doesn't serve me to think these crappy stories all the time that lead nowhere, and chances are they're not going to happen anyway. So I hope I helped you with that one. I'm not fully sure I understand it. If spiraling up being more positive, even if it doesn't sound good. So if that helps, let me know. Somebody put, I have a golden rule that my bank account never goes under a certain amount. This has helped me make decisions in situations where I feel pressure to buy. Boom. I love it. I love it. It stays there. And when you're in a situation where you're like, God, should I buy it? Should I not? It's like having a golden rule with your spouse. This is a great one too. Like, um, having a golden rule where you could buy anything you want up into a certain amount. And then if it reaches that threshold, then you have to have a discussion with your spouse about it. And you and your spouse can agree on that one together. Like if it's $500, if it's over 500, then I'm going to talk to my wife about it. Or if it's below that, then I get to decide. That's another great golden rule. But thank you for sharing that one. That one's, I may have to talk to my wife about that one. If we get to a certain threshold in our bank account. I love it. I love it. Okay, so that's where we are. We did the golden rules. We did making decisions. And so the next one is, third thing on the list is plan your decisions for the next day, the night before. So plan them ahead of time. Now, I see a lot where people are like, plan your day the night before, but I'm just going to piggyback off that one a little bit. So when you plan your day, when you write out your to-do list the night before, I think it's a great idea, by the way. I want you to add something to that. I want you to decide what the first 3 steps are for each decision, or for each thing on the to-do list. So if it is go to the bank, it might be the first thing you do might be put together a deposit. The second thing might be put it in my purse or whatever, but decide those 3 steps out. Because what happens is we wake up in the morning and we look at that to-do list and we're like, go to the bank. What do I need to do first? But if you've already written those out, once again, you've saved some of that, what I call decision energy that plays into our decision fatigue, right? But when you do the to-do list too, this is what I like to do. I decide which ones I'm going to do first. I may have 20 things on my to-do list and I know I'm not going to get them all done. So then I decide, well, I'm going to do this one first, this one second, this one third. And this also helps, like, will help you in deciding which one first. Is there's a great book out there called Eat the Frog or Eat That Frog. I think it is by Bryan Tracy. And it basically says, do the hardest thing first, or the thing you least want to do. Do that first thing in the morning, because after that, the rest of your day is gravy. The rest of your day is great. I think the European saying goes that if you eat a frog first thing in the morning, then the rest of your day is just going to be beautiful. Like that's the worst thing you can do. So, and it works too, because if I do the thing, and I always do not necessarily the hardest thing, but the thing I least want to do. If I do that first, man, the big weight's off my shoulder. The rest of the day, I'm just kind of cruising through it. So you could use that as well. And what's going to happen here too is don't worry about if life happens. Like you said, I'm going to do this first, this second, this third, this fourth, this fifth, which I do. I'll go all the way up to 8 sometimes, depending on how big some of these things are. And all of a sudden life happens. Well, don't worry about that, because remember, we're teaching ourselves to decide, follow through, and then that third one is overcome. So no matter what life happens, I can overcome it. I'll figure out a way. That's my favorite thought. And so if life happens, that's fine. Just learn from it. And then the next time you go, when you set up the order of your list, you can change that, which helps us go into the next one, which is deciding the most important thing to do. Practice deciding the most important thing to do. So let's say if you do I'm using to-do lists as an example. I think it's one that we can all understand. But if you do all these things on your to-do list and you've got all these things left, and at the end of the day, you realize, oh no, I should have done that one first. Guess what you've learned? You're teaching your brain in that moment what's more important. So the more that you make decisions, follow through, overcome, you're actually teaching yourself what's more important. And so one of the ways to practice deciding what's important is just to grab your to-do list and give yourself 5 seconds to pick. Just, if you don't know what's important, if you're an entrepreneur and you've got a bunch of things that you know all are important, pick one and then go do it, decide and follow through. And then you're make an informed decision, don't forget, but then evaluate it later. Like at the end of the day, did that push me in the direction I want to go? Like I know that as an entrepreneur, that if I do my lead gen and marketing in the morning, then it's much better because it requires more of my energy. And then if I save it till the end of the day, I'm not going to do it. And so I've intuitively taught myself to make more and understand intuitively what's important. If you're a student, same thing. Do I study first thing in the morning, or when is your energy? You can figure these things out. But the only way is to make a decision and evaluate. Make a decision and evaluate. Did that serve me? Did that work? I teach another muscle out there, but that's a whole separate lesson. It's the evaluation muscle, how to properly evaluate. But anyway, so that's another way to strengthen your muscles, to value, or is to practice making, or just practice deciding what's important, or practice figuring out what's important. Because we can teach ourselves. Your brain is very adaptive when it comes to that. Okay, and the next one. Practice making true decisions versus regular old decisions, as I like to call them. And this goes back to the very beginning when I was talking about the root meaning of the word decide is to cut off. I'm going to cut off all other alternatives. And I know for all of you out there that love to have a plan B, that's great. My plan B is I'll figure it out. And that goes back to the successful people have two things. They trust themselves to follow through, and they trust themselves to figure it out. So the more you can build up your ability to figure it out, then you don't need a plan B, because all of a sudden plan B, if you're planning out plan B, then plan B looks better than plan A now, and now you're struggling to decide again. So we need to work on making true decisions. This one is a category. It's going to take me a little bit more to explain. It's a little more challenging to explain how to make a true decision and what the difference is between a regular old decision, but I find it extremely helpful. I just dove into this probably a few weeks ago. I dove into detail because I wanted to understand why I was making decisions and then not following through on some of them, right? So a true decision happens now. Happens now, not tomorrow or next week, but it happens now. You make that decision, and in that moment, you cut it off. So no more, for me, it was like, oh, I'm going to start getting up early tomorrow. That's not a true decision. That leaves you that gap to decide tomorrow morning that I'm not getting up. So I decided in that moment, no, I get up early now. And then the next morning allows me the opportunity to step into that belief. But a true decision has a certainty to it. It has a knowingness, like you just know you're going to follow through. There's a commitment and a resolve to it. So it has a feeling attached to it. And this is why I said it's a little bit more challenging to explain, but it has a certain energy in your body. And then if you could learn to tap into that energy where when you think, or when you have a decision that you know you're going to follow through with, tap into that energy, find out where it is at your body, because you could recreate that energy over and over again and pair it up with other decisions to make them true decisions. And the best example that I can think of is when we get angry at something, we're like, oh, I'm never going to let that happen again. In that moment, we've made a true decision. I'm never going to let that happen again. But if you peel away that overall anger, inside there is what am I saying? There is a place in your body where you can feel the conviction and you can feel the commitment. For me, it happens in my chest. I feel like it's an Iron Man thing. If you know Iron Man, he's got the big power cell right there in his chest, and I feel this power right there. Like I could. It's not that it tightens; it just has this resolve to it. And I also felt it in my forehead. And so once I learned that, then I was able to visualize other decisions and pair those feelings up together. So I would visualize myself making another true decision. I'd close my eyes and I would feel myself. I would make that decision. I would feel if it lit up in my body in that area. If not, then I would cultivate it again. Like I would just boom. Sometimes like I would just get angry. You're going to get up early. And then that feeling would come in there. I was like, oh, there it is. And then I was able to let the anger go and just have that feeling there. So it's a wonderful thing to pair up. And so a true decision has this like knowingness to it. It's this feeling, whereas a regular old decision, I'm sure you can all resonate with this one, but a regular old decision just lacks energy. It is stuck inside, well, I'll try, or I might, or I might not. I love it when people say, I'm trying to decide. Well, I'm trying to decide. Like, what does trying to decide look like? Is this trying to decide? Like, no, it's Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try. Trying to decide is simply saying, I don't want to make the decision. It makes me uncomfortable to make this decision and I don't want to make it. So think about that one too. But a regular old decision has an underlying doubt to it. There's a doubt on whether you're going to follow through or not. And I'll give you an example. Let's say a random example for me would be like making the decision that I'm going to clean the toilet the next day. I love using these off the wall ones, but so the next day when I pass by the toilet, if I have made a true decision, I look over at it and I go, oh yeah, I'm cleaning that today. And if I have time, I might even clean it in the moment, but there's this resolution. It brings me, a true decision brings you closer to what you want to do. Whereas a regular old decision brings resistance with it. Like there's resistance. Like I'll look over at the toilet and be like, I don't know. I don't know. And then if I pass it by and I pass it by again, that resistance builds and builds. And the more times I pass by it, the less likely I'm going to do it. So regular old decisions are more likely to push you away from doing it, whereas a true decision brings you closer. And I will say this, that a lower, what I call a lower credit score with yourself will lead to more difficulty in making true decisions. And what is a credit score with yourself? It's your self-esteem. It's that, back to those two qualities. I trust myself to follow through. And I say every time you make a decision and you break it, make a decision and you break it, you're lowering your credit score with yourself. And so you don't trust yourself, you don't believe in yourself, you start losing confidence. And when you've got a higher credit score, then the true decisions are easier. So the last thing I want to share with you is how to build up that credit score with yourself. This is a completely separate muscle, mental muscle that I teach. It's called the promise muscle. And it's super simple. If you lack the confidence in yourself or the belief in yourself, the way to raise your credit score with yourself is to start making promises to yourself and keep it. Make a promise and keep it. It's almost like a decision, but it's a little bit different. Like you're just promising yourself. But I want you to start small. And I see another question here. I will get to it in just one moment. But I want you to start small. Make a promise that, don't make a promise that you're going to work out 4 days this week and then only work out 3, because that one day that you didn't work out is actually lowering your credit score. So for me, it would look like, I'll promise I'm going to do 10 push-ups today rather than 100. And then every time I do 10 push-ups, my credit score goes up a little bit. The biggest thing you're going to face with this one is what I did good enough to raise my credit score? But I promise you it is, because when you stack promise kept after promise kept, no matter how little they are, they build up. And now you're like, man, it may have only been 10 push-ups, but I've done it 30 days in a row. I didn't think I could follow through with that much. And then now your credit score raises, and you could, just like a financial credit score, you could tap into that and get better loans and do better things. Now you could tap into your higher credit score and you could raise that push-ups, let's say, to 20 push-ups a day, and then start following through with that. So that's the promise muscle. That's the last way. Let me hop into this. Somebody said, I guess I made a true decision recently when I decided not to be friends with that person anymore. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what the follow through with that is just to not, if you're going to be acquaintances or whatever, there might be more to that true decision. There might be some boundaries and stuff in there, but yeah, you're not going to allow, that's what I said. Remember the impact that decisions have? That's allowing somebody in your life. That's allowing somebody to influence you. That's allowing somebody to affect the way you make decisions, right? I bet that has a huge impact. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's going to be amazing. So just to recap on everything, there's bunches of different ways and types of decision we make, from big or little impulse ones to daily ones to planning your future ones. There's ways that we do it. We hem-haw around. We go with our gut feeling. We weigh the pros and cons. There's all kinds of different ways. We do the most important thing. There's all kinds of ways we do it. But the impact we know is big or little. Those decisions guide us to the point where we're at in life right now. And if we want to guide us to a direction that we want to go, then we can start making better decisions or enhance our decision-making muscle. And the different ways to do that are just start making decisions, lots of them, experience that decision fatigue, take a break, and then strengthen it by doing more decisions. The second thing is make golden rules, permanent decisions, 10 to 15 of them where the decision's already made. This saves you decision-making energy. The next one is plan your decisions for the next morning, the night before. And then that way, when you wake up in the morning, you saved all that decision energy. You're like, what do I do first? You've already done it. The next one is practicing deciding what's important. Teach yourself what's important by just making decisions and evaluating, making decisions and evaluating. And then practice making true decisions. Tap into your body when you know you've made a true decision. And now there's a little bit more to that down the road, maybe 90 days, 30 days into it. You might have to recommit. You're experiencing some doubt. That's when you go back, you visualize it, you feel it again in there and recommit to it and do it. And then the other one is the promise muscle. We're not going to be able to make these decisions if we don't trust ourselves to follow through and trust ourselves to figure it out. And so use the promise muscle, make promises that you, small promises and keep them, small promises and keep them until your credit score goes up. And I promise you, like, if you don't follow through on one of your own promises, it doesn't matter if nobody else sees it or not. You do, and your subconscious, conscious, or whatever you want to call it, it's keeping track. It knows. It knows whether I worked out. I haven't worked out in the last 3 or 4 days. I have gotten on the exercise bike, but it knows that I haven't done those things. And I see one more thing on there. This has been one of the best talks I've attended. Yay! I've learned so much about decisions. I want to have a better relationship with my decisions. Ooh, I like that. A better relationship with your decisions. Yeah, think about that. Like, just like we have relationships with other people, we have relationships with our businesses. We have relationships with our decision making. That's wonderful. I encourage you to write out, what is your relationship right now with your decision making? Is it a battle? Do you fight it? And write out what you would like it to be. That's going to help guide you in the direction. That was awesome. That was awesome. And thank you for saying this has been one of the best ones you've attended. I love it. I appreciate that so much. So one last call for any questions before we head out. I hope you all enjoyed everything. I hope you got something out of it. I'm going to give you a couple more moments to type, and if I don't see anything, then we can wrap it up. Yay, 2:52. I wasn't sure how long it would go, but I think we made it. I think we filled it too. I like to give as much information as possible, but make it as easily understandable as possible. That's always one of my goals. Well, I don't see anything else. So it's been wonderful. My name is Bryan Peterson again. I am a success mindset coach with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. If you want to hear more about what I do, feel free to reach out to me through Life Coach University. And once again, you're amazing for showing up. If you're here with me live, awesome. If you're coming later on, you're amazing as well. And I want to remind you that this is brought to you again by the Life Coach University and their Pay It Forward program, where literally coaches from around the world, I just saw a map on their site that shows where all these coaches live, and I was like stunned. But coaches from around the world have come to coach you and millions more. All that we ask is that you join us in paying it forward. You can do it any way you want. You can volunteer. You could pay for somebody's meal. You can give somebody a hug. You can teach somebody what you learned here. And it all starts with each one of us in our own communities. We just want you to join with us in creating the type of world that we want to live in, which is, I believe, one of more peace, love, joy, and meaningful connection. So thank you so much. You have an amazing day. I love you all. Bye.